Welcome to the Abundant Vision Fundraising Podcast. Whether you are a seasoned professional or a first-time fundraiser, we have the advice you need to take your next step toward major gift mastery. I'm your host, Tom Dauber, President of Abundant Vision Philanthropic Consulting. So one of the things that differentiates me from some of the other fundraising consultants out there is that I've not only done a lot of fundraising as an individual, I've managed fundraisers for a pretty long time, about a decade. As a result, not only can I teach you how to become a better fundraiser, how to set appointments, how to execute appointments, how to cultivate gifts and facilitate gifts from donors, but I also have a lot of thoughts and a lot of experience to share about how to lead fundraisers effectively. And so today's episode, I want to talk about that. Many of the fundraisers I talk to at small organizations are managed by someone who's never raised money before. And that can be problematic. So there's a lot of things that need to be considered here, but I'm going to share with you 5 things that I think can help you as a manager to do a better job of keeping your fundraisers happy and helping them be successful. So first off, one of the big mistakes you could make is to think that fundraising is just for your fundraiser. So if you're at a small nonprofit, let's say you're the executive director and you're managing a development officer, you've got to hear me on this. Your availability and your ability to craft a compelling vision, those 2 things can very likely be the key to your fundraiser either succeeding or failing in their role. What I mean is vision is going to be the big limiter on how much money your fundraiser can solicit and close. If you've got a great vision, you can solicit really large gifts. And as the executive director, your role is to build that vision and to help cast that vision. Not only does that give your fundraiser more confidence in what they're sharing and selling, it also is the thing that differentiates you from other organizations that are competing for your donor support. So you have a lot of responsibility in the fundraising process. I've seen fundraisers that are otherwise pretty average in their abilities just take off in terms of the revenue they're able to secure, primarily because they attach themselves to a leader who is a rock star, has a great vision. So this is going to be really important. Now, your availability is also critical, not just the ability to create a compelling vision, but also your availability to go on fundraising calls with your donor. You see, fundraising is a team sport. Now put yourself in your donor's shoes. Are you going to feel more valued by a visit from the fundraiser or the CEO of the organization? Many of your donors are CEOs. Your best ones probably have that capacity because they are leaders themselves of businesses. I have found frequently that CEOs of organizations want to talk to CEOs of nonprofits. They understand that the leader can make all the difference in the impact of the organization. So if you're not available, your development officer may not even get the appointment to meet with those people. But if you're going along with them to talk, it's way more likely that they're going to get that appointment. And besides, who but you can speak the most passionately about your mission and with the most authority? It's not your fundraiser. They might be able to speak passionately, but ultimately, the buck stops with the leader. So if you could only make one change today to improve your fundraising results, the most important one is to reserve time on your calendar each week when you can be available for the work of fundraising. If it were up to me, that'd be like 30% of your time. I think you'll find that the most successful fundraising organizations really see a large percentage of time focused on fundraising by their leader. And I know that may seem impossible to you right now, and Maybe it really is impossible, but do your best. I will say this, though. I know of nonprofit leaders that have missed out on $1 million gifts because they just weren't available. And they could have gotten that gift. And when you think about the 50K they might have needed to spend to hire someone to make them a little bit more available, someone they could delegate to, even if it was 100,000, it would have been worth it. They could have done it had they just invested the money into fundraising by hiring someone to delegate to so that they could be out there in front of donors. So that's number one. The next thing I'd tell you, this is pretty important. Don't micromanage your fundraiser. There's a strong correlation between the length of tenure as a fundraiser and fundraising success. So that means that the longer you can hold on to your fundraiser, the more money they will raise. Now, this is primarily due to the relationship between tenure and having strong relationships with donors and organizational leadership. So there's two things there, right? There's, donors don't want to meet with fundraisers when they just see a revolving door of fundraisers going through the organization. Just another person to have to build relationships with. It's not a good look for your organization, doesn't help fundraising. Same thing's true with your organizational leadership, though. You need leaders within the organization, even beyond the executive director, to be involved in fundraising. Because like I said before, it's a team sport. So if I've got a food pantry, for example, or some type of mission, to feed folks that don't have food, bringing along the head cook, or maybe the person that oversees the logistics for things can be pretty powerful because they can speak really directly to why your facilities need improved or what difference it could make, what impact it could make if we could just have a few more freezers and some nicer ovens and maybe a new facility of some sort. That makes a huge difference. But you're not going to be able to get that type of buy-in from your team if that fundraising position is constantly revolving, which is going to happen if you micromanage your people. Tom Dauber here for Abundant Vision Academy. Are you a nonprofit leader who's new to fundraising? Are you feeling crushed by your fundraising goals and not sure how to find success? My online class, crafted from my 25 years of experience and more than 5,000 donor meetings, Abundant Vision Academy will give you the confidence and understanding you need to start building relationships with donors and having gift discussions in just 110 minutes. You'll get 14 videos covering all the topics you need to find success in fundraising. You can take it at your own pace and can watch as many times as you'd like. This is one of the best deals in fundraising continuing education you can get today. To make sure you get off to a strong start in 2024, I'm offering a 50% discount to anyone signing up for my course this spring. That's a $375 value. Enter the coupon code SPRING2024 at checkout to claim your 50% discount. That's spring 2024. Head on over to thomas-dauber-s-school.teachable.com and click on Abundant Vision Academy to get your discount today. The link is in the podcast description. Now, hear me. I certainly believe you should hold your employees accountable to predetermined annual goals. But once you've established those annual goals, and we'll talk about those in just a little bit, you've got to give them the freedom to build those goals and to plan the strategy out for themselves. And once they've presented those goals and plans to you, get the heck out of their way. Support them, give them the resources they need to execute those strategies. Be available. And yes, follow their progress using their CRM and get updates in your one-on-ones. But don't be hounding them. Now, if you're the sort of manager that just feels a compulsion to constantly check progress every day, use your CRM. Maybe you've got a leader that needs to hear that. Maybe if you're the executive director, maybe you've got a board chair that needs a constant stream of information about what's happening. If that's the case, use your CRM in a way to track that information. I know I was able to set up some reports on my CRM that let me know in real time pretty much every day about any conversation that was taking place, solicitations, dollars raised, all those great things. So look at that, but don't let your team know that you're following their activities that closely. It's going to make them feel weird, like they're under the microscope. And if you chase off your fundraiser, you can be certain that in the long run, you're going to lose fundraising revenue. Another important thing to consider: do not undermine your fundraiser's professional growth. In this business of fundraising, turnover is very common. If you can hold on to your person for 2.5 years, that's, I think, the average right now in the nonprofit world. While we want to reduce turnover by treating our employees well, there will probably come a time when your fundraiser is going to need to go if they want to continue growing professionally. If that's the case, support them in this. Encourage them. Do not take their need for growth or greater financial or greater personal income as an indictment. It isn't about you. We all have reasons for why we want to make money. Maybe it's to feed your kids. Maybe it's to help a parent. Maybe it's to plan for retirement. There's a lot of reasons why a better income at another organization is going to be important to them. And just accept that. If you can't be competitive and in pay, then just accept that. Or if you can't give them management opportunity or other types of professional growth, it shouldn't be a personal thing. And keep in mind, there may come a time in the future when you need their help. They may even be your boss someday. I've seen that happen. There was a person that I always wanted to work for, and life threw some curves, and next thing I know, she's actually working for me. Now, this person always treated me well, but that could have been a weird thing had we not had a good relationship. Number 4, my list today. If you want to stymie your fundraiser, if you want to make a fundraising mistake, then create goals that are not evidence-based. As I was saying before, I strongly encourage you to allow your employee to create their goals, their own goals, within certain guidelines, of course. But then they should discuss it with you for final approval. The goal should be built by looking at historical data, benchmarking with other institutions, and what your fundraiser's donor portfolio looks like what asks can be made in this year with which people, and what is their giving capacity. And that's going to change from year to year. Only after looking at all those things should you then also tack on, the current needs of the organization. A good way to fail in this, for example, would be to pick a number out of the blue or to add a certain percentage to whatever they did last year. That's not a good way to set a goal, because you've got to have a clear rationale for why fundraising is going to grow at your organization. Fundraising isn't going to grow simply because you were there an extra year. Fundraising isn't going to grow simply because you had a shortfall and need another 10% this year. That doesn't inspire more giving. Having financial need is not a good reason for your goal. Goals are based on fundraising plans, and fundraising plans are based on people. And so you've got to know your people, and your goals should reflect what you believe your people can do. Lastly, the opposite problem of micromanaging is not paying attention to your fundraiser's work. We all need encouragement in this world. Knowing that your manager sees your good work and appreciates it goes a long way in a world where there's lots of competition for talent. But you'll never be able to encourage your team if you don't pay attention to their work. One thing I'd highly recommend is actually take the time to read your chief development officer's contact reports. Maybe just the summaries if you don't have all the time in the world, but read them. A well-read summary should really give you a feel for what happened in the meeting. It's usually just a sentence, but take the time to do this. And when you see something that's great, let them know you read it. Compliment them. So this is going to reinforce the fact that contact reports are important at your organization, and that your report should take them seriously. So that's a great thing to reinforce, because you're building institutional history here, right? Now, on the flip side, if you've got someone who's maybe not doing good work, maybe they're even doing some unethical things, taking a look at those contact reports can also tip you off as a manager to your fundraiser falsifying work by copying and pasting texts into their reports. I've seen it. It actually happens. The other thing that I'd say too is when you're paying attention to what your fundraiser does, they notice, and everybody wants attention. But it's going to help you understand if and when they're ready for more responsibility. I think one of the saddest things is when organizations, and this is probably more large organizations than small ones, if they're not paying close attention to what their fundraiser is doing, oftentimes they don't know who's growing, who's really hitting the ball out of the park. And as a result, they end up missing opportunities to promote from within. And somebody else, usually another organization, ends up getting the fruit of their hard work. So don't do that. Don't miss out on emerging talent in your organization. Pay attention. Know who's doing a good job. Tell them when they're doing a good job. Talk about them to your board. And truly, when you can give somebody a promotion, give them a promotion. Give them a raise. Don't make your fundraiser be asking you for raises all the time, especially if they're deserved. Be the one to bring that conversation up. Talk with them about their future in the organization. That's going to be your best way to keep them there and to increase their fundraising productivity. Now, if you've enjoyed this podcast, please be sure to subscribe and give us a 5-star rating on your podcast provider. As always, I'm your host, Tom Dauber. Thank you for joining me as we journey together toward major gift mastery on the Abundant Vision Fundraising Podcast.